And welcome in, sports fans, to today's Roundtable. Glad you joined us as we are well into the fall sports season and about 4 weeks into the season now across all fall sports in the area and including high school football week 4 last night throughout the area in southeast Missouri and northeast Arkansas. Some pretty big matchups last night to take a look at. We'll take a look at that here momentarily, but also a little movement in the state rankings this week for high school football. We're going to take a look at those and also take a look at some other results in the area in the fall sports scene in volleyball, softball, baseball, soccer, tennis, all that happening across the area as well. So a whole lot going on coming into the end of September, about to hit October, and about at the midway point of the football season now. Into week 4, there's 9 regular season weeks for high school football here in Missouri, 10 in Arkansas. So we're about at the midway point. It's unbelievable that we've gotten this far this quick. So we'll be taking a look at everything that's going on throughout the week here on the Sports Roundtable. Be sure to tune in each Saturday morning, typically live at 10 a.m. A little late start this morning, getting a little setback, but tune in each Saturday morning live at 10 a.m. right here on YHC and also at YHCTV.com and our Facebook and YouTube pages. So let's get into what's taking place in the football scene from last night. Take a look at the results from last night and in a game we brought to you live here on Channel 21 and online last night. Portageville and Chaffey. Portageville getting a big victory over the Chaffey Red Devils, 44-14. No problem for the Bulldogs last night. Both sides of the ball showed up big. And 3 defensive scores for the Bulldogs last night. 2 scooping scores off fumbles and 1 interception return for a touchdown last night for the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs go to 2-2 on the year. An impressive start for the Bulldogs, or impressive start last night in the game, and finished up with an impressive victory over the Chaffey Red Devils. So Portageville at 500 going forward into week 5 next week. And also, let's go down to northeast Arkansas. The Rector Cougars getting a big win over the Piggott Mohawks, 22-8. And Rector reviving that program over the last handful of years and steadily have grown that. Coach Hendricks down there goes from Piggott to Rector to get the football program back and going for the Rector Cougars, and coming up with a big win last night against that Clay County foe, the Piggott Mohawks in Rector. So goalpost may have came down last night, I'm not sure, but it's an awful big win for the Cougars in that game last night, coming off a win against Corning last week, shutout victory over Corning, and then an impressive victory over Piggott, 22-8 last night there in Rector. So look out for the Rector Cougars, looking pretty strong in that 2A district in northeast Arkansas. And also big game last night, probably game of the week in the area to look forward to, especially in the Boot Heel. The Kenneth Indians and the Crothersville Tigers, and the Kenneth Indians had no problem with the Tigers, 41-22, and the Kenneth Indians putting up a big number once again, 40-plus points against an impressive opponent in the Crothersville Tigers. You know, Devin Russell leads that team for the Tigers at the quarterback position. Had a pretty strong night last night, I think 160 yards passing, but Kenneth had all the yardage on the ground. We'll get to that in a moment, but Kenneth, no problem with the Crothersville Tigers, extend their record to 4-0 last night with a big Boot Hill victory over Crothersville. And the Matter County Central over Donovan, 54-6, big win for the Matter County Central Eagles, and they continue to roll through their schedule so far this year. They've gone to 4-0 after last night, and I think they've hit at least 40 points in all their games so far, it seems like. And coming off a big win last week against Dexter, following it up against Donovan last night. So New Madrid, one of the hottest teams in the area, and look out for them going forward. It's going to be a very interesting conference matchup potentially with them and the Crothersville Tigers. Looks like it might come down to them in Crothersville for that SEMO Central title. And boy, that'll be a matchup here in the next few weeks. That'll be a couple weeks down the road. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in that SEMO Central. And Jackson getting a shutout victory over Sykeston, no problem for the Indians, 53-0. And Jackson, another one of those teams that is just rolling through their schedule each and every week. They're in the top 5 in the state rankings in Class 5, which we'll get to. But Coach Etley, he's had it going there for the last few years. And no different this year. This might be one of the better teams he's had in the last number of years, the way it looks in their schedule so far. But probably the most dominant team in the area, especially when you expect that out of a Class 5 team. But look awful strong this year in Jackson once again and roll through Sykeston 53-0. And take a look at Scott City. This is another team to look out for. Scott City over Charleston 35-7. And they go to 4-0 on the year. An impressive victory over Charleston. Charleston looked good early on in the season. And I tell you, you put 35 on Charleston and also keep them to 7 points. It's a heck of an effort. And we saw that out of the Scott City Rams last night as they rode a 4-0. So look out for the Rams, especially in that Class 2 district, going forward this season. And Poplar Bluff over Rittenhour. Poplar Bluff took a long trip up to St. Louis last night, getting a victory on the road against Rittenhour, 43-34. Had a close one there, but pulled out the road victory up in St. Louis. They go to 3-1 on the year, looking really good so far this season. So strong outing for the Mules on the road in St. Louis against Rittenhour. And Kelly getting a victory over Malden. Big win for Kelly. Kelly, a young program, only about 5-6 years old now, and looking really strong this year. They got some nice wins and get one over Malden last night, 38-14. So things looking good in Kelly this year. Malden struggling a bit. Their only win for the year last week against Portageville. Got a decisive win over Portageville, but it's been a tough year for the Malden Green Wave so far. But on the other side, the Kelly Hawks and getting some impressive victories early on. Got one last night against the Green Wave. And Hayti over East Prairie. No problem for the Hayti Indians last night, and they really bounced back since that week 1 loss to Thayer and really put it on the Eagles last night, 60-14. And Hayti climbing back up in that Class 1 state poll as well. So look out for the Indians. It seems like they've gotten a surge since that week 1 loss. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that matchup once again later in the year come district time. I tell you, that Class 1, District 1, we'll take a look at it in the state polls here shortly. But I tell you, there's a lot of thick competition in that Class 1, District 1. And very well could be the case that whoever wins that district might have a chance at a state championship. So we'll take a look at that here momentarily. And Farmington over Cape Central, getting a win in the Class 4. Both teams playing in Class 4, District 1. So Farmington defeating Cape Central last night, 23-6. And let's take a look at some of the headlines from last night. More in depth from the games. And going back to Portageville, and now 2-2 on the year. Battle of 1 and 2 teams last night with Portageville and Chaffey. And Portageville had an impressive showing. Chaffey had an opening score on their opening drive. Looked really good on that opening drive. Took an early lead, 6-0. And from that point on, it was all Portageville Bulldogs. They got up to I believe it was a 36-6 score, and ended up being a 44-14 with a late touchdown for each team. But it was pretty much all Bulldogs after that first opening drive from the Red Devils, and got some nice performances out of this Adams kid for Portageville, sophomore running back. I tell you, he's a little scat back, and boy, he's tough. He's got quick feet and can really separate, bouncing out and creating space and making plays in the open field. Got to look out for him. And over the next coming years, he's had a really good game last night, which you can see in the replay, which we'll talk about. But impressive showing by Adams last night. Well, first thing gets away from me, but he had impressive showing last night. Jared Crafton had a big game. They went with about 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the game. He had a couple of good plays at quarterback. He had long touchdown receptions from A.J. Hicks. That was the early on quarterback. A.J. Hicks had a nice pass deep down the right sideline to Jared Crafton, who took it in for the touchdown for the first score for the Bulldogs. So he had a nice night there, and a couple scoop and score touchdowns for the Portageville Bulldogs, and an interception return as well. I think that might have been Hollingshed that had the interception return for the touchdown. So Portageville getting it done on all sides of the ball last night, and Chaffey really hurting themselves at times last night. Some botched snaps, fumbles on some handoffs that really hurt them in long down situations. pretty much went with the wishbone offense, a formation of a 3-back set, doing a lot of misdirection, was very effective at times, but they really hurt themselves with fumbles last night on some handoffs and some snaps. And Chaffey, not a really consistent long down conversion team. They like to move the ball 3-4 yards at a time, and then they got backed up to 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, some of those instances, and really hurt them in that game last night. But Portageville capitalized and got a nice victory to go 2-2 on the year, and might have their toughest test on their schedule next week with them and possibly Haytide. But the Crothersville Tigers on the schedule next week. We'll talk about that more when we take a look at our broadcast schedule. But yeah, certainly a tough test, one of their toughest of the year, coming up at Portageville next week as they host the Crothersville Tigers. And Kenneth takes down undefeated Crothersville on the road down at Hopkey Field in Crothersville and getting an impressive victory. And I tell you, the performances of Marcavon Harrell and Jordan Jarrett, outstanding. Jordan Jarrett had 206 rushing yards on the night. Unbelievable performance from him. Marcavon Harrell had 193 yards, I believe it was. So those two guys really racked up the stats last night for the Indians. And they were down a few players as well, some key players. Junior quarterback Bodie Ellis was out with an apparent head injury from last week. And, golly, I hate to miss that kid's name. Was it Williams, I believe? Man, he was first-time quarterback last night with the start and came in and did well, moved the ball. And I'll tell you, Jarrett and Harrell really took up the load last night. And on the defensive side, Seth Tice, one of the best defensive backs that Kenneth's got, was out as well. And we saw him a couple weeks back with 2 interceptions in that game against Gosnell a couple weeks back. So Seth Tice was out, Bodie Ellis was out, so some key players out for the Indians last night. But Jarrett and Harrell stepped in and really picked up the load there, and over pretty much right at 400 yards between those two guys, and they had nearly 500 yards. I think it was around 470 yards on the night of offense for the Kenneth Indians. And Crothersville taking that loss at home last night, but still looking good in their conference. So we'll see what happens there. But I forgot that Kenneth's in that CMO Central as well. Talking about New Madrid and Crothersville. So Kenneth's in that conference as well. Don't want to overlook them. Kenneth been the winner of that conference the last number of years. Kenneth getting a leg up on Crothersville in that CMO Central. And we'll be taking a look at New Madrid and Kenneth in a couple of weeks, as we'll have that game on YHC in a couple of weeks as well. So that'll be a big CMO Central matchup there as well. So Kenneth there in the CMO Central, and have made a good run in that conference over the last number of years. Going to be the favorite in that one this year, but a little more stiffer competition this year with Crothersville and New Madrid in the mix this week. And we will have New Madrid and Kenneth in our broadcast schedule as we'll take a look at. But a big-time performance with some key guys out last night, key starters out against a very good opponent. And Kenneth comes away with a victory once again last night. And Rector, we talked about that. Rector wins this Clay County clash with the Piggott Mohawks 22-8. What an impressive season they've gotten off to. The Rector Cougars, they finished up a pretty strong season last year. I believe they got a playoff victory last year in that 2A conference, and really starting out great this year. I think they did suffer a first loss to Corning, but bounced back, and they played them back-to-back weeks and beat Corning 27-0 last week. And now playing the Piggott Mohawks last night, defeating the Mohawks 22-8. So the Rector Cougars looking really strong early on, especially out of a 2A, Class 2A there in Clay County, and a very senior-laden group this year, and probably one of the best teams, probably the best team Coach Hendricks has had there since they've revived that program in Rector. So it's been a slow climb to get back the program where they want it to be. It looks like got a good shot at coming up with a great year there in Rector this year. And a big win last night. I know Rector folks are happy down there. That's a big win against the Piggott Mohawks. So congratulations to Rector on an impressive victory last night. And Scott City. Scott City goes to 4-0, and this is kind of a sleeper team out there. I know each week we come on and we talk about Kenneth, we talk about Crothersville, Hayti, and up north Jackson. They kind of dominate the headlines each week with their performances. But I tell you, the Scott City team looking really good early on, especially among the Class 2 schools. And they go to 4-0 with an impressive victory over Charleston last night. And Spencer Stratman had a great night last night, had 148 rushing yards for the Rams. And look out for these Rams. I tell you, they got an impressive team and could very well be a tough opponent in that Class 2. And that Class 2 District 1 going to be awful tough this year, especially with New Madrid moving down from Class 3. Going to have the likes of Scott City, New Madrid. Malden's always been there in the mix, but a little down this year. Crothersville there in the Class 2. And I think Charleston used to be in that Class 2. I think they moved down to Class 1 now, though. So I think that is the case. I think Charleston did move down to Class 1, if I'm not mistaken. So, Class 2 is going to be awful tough this year. So we'll see what happens. But Scott City, kind of a sleeper team out there. And you got to take a look at those Rams going forward. They've got a nice start so far. And now to 4-0 on the year. And Poplar Bluff getting a nice road victory. And Poplar Bluff's answered back really well since their Week 1 loss to Country Day, MICDS out of St. Louis. Tough team, ranked team there in Country Day. I believe they play out of Class 4. I believe that might be Class 5. We'll see in the state rankings in a bit. But Poplar Bluff, they've been really good ever since, getting some dominant victories and getting a nice win on the road against Rittenhour. And extend the record to 3-1. So Poplar Bluff answering back with some nice performances since Week 1. And Jackson, what can you say about Jackson? It's pretty much same story, different team each week, and getting a dominant victory over Sykeston. No surprise there, and I probably called the dogs off a bit early in that one, I'm sure. But 53-0 win over Sykeston. That's a SEMO North Conference victory. And probably that conference is going to come down to Poplar Bluff and Jackson once again this year. That's pretty much been the rivalry, with the exception of Cape Central being in there in the mix the last couple of years as well. So, looks like Jackson looking for potentially an undefeated season if they can keep it up, and or an undefeated regular season anyways. Seems like them and Vianney, they always have those 70 to 50 games. That's something. You score 50 points in a game and get beat by 20-plus points. That's the way it's been with them and Vianney. So we'll see what happens if that is the case. They meet up with them once again this year. But Jackson's got one of the best teams they've had in probably the last handful of years. And this might be their year to break on through, potentially playing a state championship game. But the SEMO North is still up for grabs, and that Poplar Bluff Jackson game will be the one to look forward to as they've rolled through the schedule so far. Rolled over Cape Central last week, over Sykeston last night. Pretty much the only team locally to really make things interesting for them is the the Poplar Bluff Mules. The Poplar Bluff Mules, the only team that can really contend with them in that conference at this point in the SEMO North. So we'll see what happens going forward. But Jackson looking like the best team in the area this year so far, and really no surprise. But that's just the way Jackson is here of late. They've been a very dominant team, and we'll be looking forward to that matchup potentially later on in the year. Poplar Bluff and Jackson, as always. And now let's take a look at those state rankings. Let's take a look at the state rankings for the state of Missouri. A little bit of movement this week as Lincoln remains on top at number 1 at 3-0 coming into last night's game, so these will not reflect last night's games. Pierce City at number 2. The Thayer Bobcats up to number 3. They're in the top 3. And Mid Buchanan at 4. Carlton, Hayti tied at number 6. They've done some movement there. Hayti started the year at number 2 with a Week 1 loss to Thayer, moved down, I think, number 9 or 10, and now moved their way back up into number 6, a two-way tie with number 6 with Valley Catholic. And those two teams always typically meet up in the district. So two-way tie at number 6 there between Valley Catholic and Hayti, and followed up by Marceline, Adrian, and Gallatin for that top 10. Some two-way ties there, so only getting up to about 9 there. But I tell you, this Class 1 District 1 looking awful tough once again this year. Thayer, Hayti, and Valley Catholic. And I tell you, teams just, that are moving down like Charleston could really make that, district interesting as well. Charleston's no pushover. but they've taken some loss. They took a sizable loss to Hayti, but so you get them, if they come in there as about a 4 or 5 seed, that could definitely be an interesting semifinal matchup for any one of these teams. So there you go. Hayti, Valley Catholic, and Thayer is going to be a shootout, a dogfight for that Class 1 District 1 title. It's going to be really interesting and fun to watch, see how that turns out later on in the year. But it's probably one of the most competitive districts you'll see in the state is there in the Class 1 District 1. And moving up to Class 2, Cardinal Ritter remains on top at number 1 at 2-0. Luther North behind them at 1-1, followed up by Lathrop, Lamar. Lamar moving up to number 4. Maryville, Centralia, Ava, Clark County, Macon, and Palmyra, the top 10 in Class 2. And, keep thinking that Crothersville is going to crack that top 10 any week now. But a loss last night to Kenneth won't help that effort, but I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year. We see Crothersville crack that top 10. Wouldn't be surprised if New Matter keeps winning each week that they might crack that top 10. So we'll see what happens there. But no local teams there in Class 2 so far. Seems like we always got a Class 2 team there in the mix, there in the poll each year, but not the case so far this year. In Class 3, Blair Oaks on top at number 1 out of Jeff City. 2, Odessa. 3, Trinity Catholic, the defending Class 3 state champions. Got a little rough start from the defending champs, but still on top there, or still in the top 3 at number 3. Followed by Mount Vernon, St. Charles West, Southern Boone County, Cassville, and the Kenneth Indians make their way up to number 8 in the top 10 poll this week. And wouldn't be surprised if they keep moving up that poll with the dominant victories they've had on their schedule and will potentially continue to have. So we'll see what happens. But Kenneth at number 8 for this week, followed by Booneville and St. Francis Borgia. And Class 4, Ladue, the defending Class 4 state champions at number 1, followed by Camdenton, Lake Ozark. 3, Webb City. 4, Country Days. 5, Smithville. 6, West Plains. 7, Platte County, followed by St. Mary's, Lebanon, and Jeff City Helias. So as I mentioned, Poplar Bluff taking a loss to Country Day. They are state ranked in the top 4 there at number 4 in Class 4. So that's the only loss that Poplar Bluff's got on the schedule, a state-ranked Country Day team. And it was pretty close, I think. It wasn't just a total blowout. So not a bad loss there for Poplar Bluff to Country Day. So no local teams there in Class 4 in the mix. But in Class 5, Zumwalt North at number 1, followed by Staley, Carthage, the Jackson Indians. There cracked the top 5 at number 4. They keep moving up that poll each week, and that's impressive. In Class 5, in the top 4 at number 4, the Jackson Indians. Look out. They got a tough team this year and going to do some damage going forward. But ranked at number 4 with the Jackson Indians this week, followed by Chaminade, Eureka, Battle out of Columbia, North Kansas City, Raytown out of Kansas City, and Park Hill South. And that is the top 10 poll in Class 5. So as you see, there's some local teams there in the mix. And I tell you, we got some top teams that are going to make some noise come district time, I believe. And we're seeing that reflected in the statewide poll. A lot of confidence in some of these local teams we have here, even across the state. And we'll see what happens going forward. But we've got some very competitive teams that could really make some noise by the end of this year, come district tournament and potentially state tournament time. So it'll be fun to see how these teams compete going forward. All right, and let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back, touch on our broadcast schedule in football, then move on to some other fall sports in the area with those stories, and we'll take a break and come back with those coming up.
At Glen Sain, we're going to sell more Chevrolet cars and trucks between now and January the 1st than we've ever sold before. Listen to this. New Chevrolet Malibu, $19,458, $99 down, $299 a month. A 2019 Silverado, list price $48,080, your cost $34,970. What a savings. GlenSainParagould.com, best price, best service. Glen Sain, God bless our church.
And welcome back, and let's take a look at our broadcast schedule going forward. Actually, first let's talk about the replay that we've got slated for this weekend for the Chaffey Portageville game that we brought live to you last night, Friday. And you can watch that replay, Chaffey and Portageville. You can watch that Sunday afternoon at 3, and then once again Monday at 6 p.m. and also Tuesday at 6 p.m. So watch the replay here on Channel 21 of Chaffey and Portageville, and we'll have a produced version, an edited version, available on our website at yhctv.com by Sunday afternoon as well. So catch it here on Channel 21, Sunday at 3, Monday and Tuesday at 6 p.m. And let's take a look at our broadcast schedule going forward. Next Friday night, September 27th, we've got the North County Raiders coming to Metz Cherry Stadium in Kenneth to take on the Indians. That will be live here on Channel 21, live on the website at yhctv.com and Facebook Live. So look forward to that one. Next Friday night, Kenneth's going to be heavy favorites in that one. North County 0-4 coming into this game. Kenneth at 4-0. And would be surprised if we see another big Kenneth victory Friday night. But got some players a little banged up. We see Bodie Ellis, quarterback, out this last week. We'll see if he returns next week. Also Seth Tice, defensive back for the Indians on the other side. We'll see if he comes back for next week. Should be an interesting game next week. See some of those Indians can get back on the field against the Raiders next Friday night. Also, we'll be back down in Portageville as Crothersville comes to take on the Portageville Bulldogs, a boot hell matchup there. And that will be live on the website at yhctv.com. So look forward to that one next week on the website. And that's what we got coming up. Actually, let's take a look, just skip ahead to the next couple of weeks. October 4th, we got our TriCast. All these games can be viewed online at yhctv.com, but the Crothersville-Dexter game, that's a SEMO Central game. That'll be live on Channel 21 and Facebook Live. And the other games, Harrisburg at Paget, a 3A3 conference matchup. That'll be on the website at yhctv.com, as well as New Madrid County Central at Kennett. Big SEMO Central matchup there. That could be potentially the conference championship there between New Madrid County Central and Kennett, and that'll be on yhctv.com in a couple of weeks. So big game to look forward to there on October 4th, the TriCast in a couple of weeks. And now let's take a look at some of the other fall sports in the area, some of the scores to look back on this week, and starting off with some volleyball. Big matchup last night, Friday night in Bernie. Two of the top teams in the area. Bernie over Clarkton, 2-0, and big match there. Clarkton with a very competitive team, and Bernie always have a competitive team, and a pretty good match there last night between the two. Bernie taking it in 2 straight sets. Crothersville over South Pemiscot in 2 straight sets. Boot Hill Conference matchup there in volleyball. Leopold over Puxico, two straight sets. And Advance defeating Leopold in 2 straight sets. Bell City over East Prairie in 2 straight sets. Poplar Bluff over Sykes-en, the SEMO Conference in 2 straight sets for the Lady Mules. Kenneth over Portageville in the Boot Hill, 2-0, 2 straight sets for Kenneth over Portageville. Jackson over Notre Dame, 2-0. And big matchup there. That's a SEMO Conference matchup there. 2 of the better programs in high school volleyball in the fall. And Jackson getting a 2-0 victory over Notre Dame. And Holcomb over Cooter, 2-0. Dexter over Bernie in Stoddard County, 2-0. Cape Central over Bloomfield, 2-0. Chaffey over Van Buren, now moving on to high school softball. Chaffey over Van Buren, 11-4. Twin Rivers over Neelyville, 2-1, and a close one. Poplar Bluff over Naylor in a close one, 8-7. Bell City over Oran, 3-0. Lee Summit North over Notre Dame, 3-2. Jefferson City over East Carter, 8-0. East Carter over Camdenton, 3-0. Notre Dame over Fatima, 10-0. And take a look at some fall baseball results in the boys' ranks. Yesterday, Friday, Clarkton over Southland, 11-2 for their first victory of the year in the fall. Bloomfield over Woodland, 6-5 in a close one. South Pemiscot over Risco, big, 15-0. Cooter over Zenith Hornersville, 10-0. Holcomb over Gideon, big, 17-2. Campbell over Bernie, 14-3. Twin Rivers over Bell City, 12-5. And moving on to some tennis scores. Kenneth over Sykeston in 9 straight matches, 9 matches to none. Kenneth over Sykeston. Jackson over Charleston, 8 matches to 1. Cape Central over Crothersville, 9 matches to none. And Arcadia Valley over Dexter, 5 matches to 4. Close one there between Arcadia Valley and Dexter. And Arcadia Valley taking it 5 matches to 4 over Dexter. And those are the other fall results in the area. And we're going to take another break and be back with more coming up.
Hey folks, it's hot out here, but the deals are even hotter. Like this late model Equinox starting under $300 per month, or a Ford Focus starting $149 per month, or several pre-owned Ford Escapes under $200 per month. Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, home of the lifetime warranty.
The end of summer sales event going on here at Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, with pre-owned RAV4 starting under $200 per month, plus a great selection of Tacomas, 4Runners, and Sienna vans. Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, home of the lifetime warranty.
And welcome back, and let's take a look at some college football and NFL games taking place this weekend, and take a look at some college football for this weekend. Southern Mississippi at second-ranked Alabama. Big favorite there in the Alabama Crimson Tide. Fourth-ranked LSU at Vanderbilt in the SEC. Tennessee at ninth-ranked Florida. Boy, I'll tell you, that'd be a big win for Tennessee. They've had some tough ones, losing some tough opponents. I think, what was that? I can't remember the state. Georgia State, I think it was. They lost early on in the year, and then BYU at home. And I could definitely use that road victory against ninth-ranked Florida. But SEC matchup there certainly to favor the Gators here later on today. 11th-ranked Michigan at 13th-ranked Wisconsin. Big matchup there in the Big Ten Conference. And 11th-ranked Michigan on the road taking on Wisconsin. Could be a tough one for the Wolverines. Miami of Ohio at Ohio State, 6th-ranked Ohio State. 8th-ranked Auburn at 17th-ranked Texas A&M. That one's in the SEC. 15th-ranked or 16th-ranked, or no, is that 15th? Yeah, I think it's 15th-ranked at Stanford in the Pac-12. That Pac-12 conference a little tougher this year. They've kind of been of a doormat here in the last few years, but I think they got 5 or 6 ranked teams in the top 25 in the Pac-12, and they've certainly made a rebound this year. A lot more competitive in the Pac-12. Charlotte at top-ranked Clemson. Big Clemson going to be big favorites in that one against non-conference Charlotte. Oklahoma State at 12th-ranked Texas. Rivalry game there between Oklahoma State at Texas and the Big 12 Conference. 7th-ranked Notre Dame at 3rd-ranked Georgia. Probably your game of the week. Non-conference game there, of course, but tell you, playoff implications could be on the line in this one, as Notre Dame and Georgia going to be there at the top at the end of the season, but probably whoever loses this game is going to have a tough time in the playoff, especially if Georgia loses. Georgia's got some tough conference games this year with LSU and Alabama. Georgia really needs this win to give them a little bit of cushion going forward with some potential conference losses. So same thing for Notre Dame. Notre Dame needs the win. They need a big win like this to bolster that resume, since they don't play in a conference to go into that college football playoff. So both much needed wins for potential college football playoff berths for Notre Dame and Georgia. And our local teams, West Virginia State travels to Cape Girardeau today to take on the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks. And Southern Illinois on the road in Jonesboro taking on Arkansas State, the Red Wolves. So local teams in action there today as well. So those are the games to look forward to in the college ranks for today. And take a look at some NFL games taking place this weekend. Dolphins at the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are big favorites. 2 early on wins this year, and I think they were up to 26-point favorites or 23-point favorites. Just unbelievable, the spread in that game. And that one's at Dallas, and I expect them to cover. As poor as Dolphins have looked in the first 2 weeks, just pitiful. But Cowboys been rolling, been looking good, both sides of the ball, and I expect them to roll over the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. The Broncos at the Packers, interesting matchup there in Green Bay. I think the Packers are about 2-point favorites in that one, I think. No, excuse me. I think they're about 6-point favorites in that one, if I'm not mistaken. Falcons at the Colts. The Ravens at the Chiefs, and probably game of the week there. The Ravens at the Chiefs, both teams coming in at 2-0, and lightning starts for quarterbacks Lamar Jackson for the Ravens and Patrick Mahomes, the reigning MVP for the Chiefs. They've gotten off to great starts, really putting up big numbers and big passing numbers, so that's certainly what everybody's going to be looking at come Sunday between those two teams, the Ravens and the Chiefs. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes going to be battling it out in Kansas City. That's their home opener at Arrowhead this season. They've had 2 road games, the Chiefs have, so that stadium's going to be rocking for that home opener, and that'll be a fun one to watch at 12 noon on CBS on Sunday. The Jets at the Patriots, big spread there. Once again, I think that one's upwards around 26-point favorite for the Patriots, and I wouldn't expect I expect them to cover that easily. But the Jets looking really rough. Sam Darnold, quarterback, still out with mono for a couple more weeks at least. Trevor Siemian, the backup quarterback's out with a broken ankle, and looking really tough for the Jets so far this year. It's only 2 games in. The Lions at the Eagles. The Lions look pretty good. They haven't lost a game. They won last week against the Chargers and a tie in week 1 against the Cardinals. So they're still avoiding that loss so far. But the Eagles look pretty good. They did have a tough week last week. A couple of receivers out against the Falcons. A little short-handed against the Falcons, but still pretty competitive in that one. So look for the Eagles to bounce back against the Lions in Philadelphia this weekend. The Panthers at the Cardinals. Could be an interesting matchup there. The Cardinals and rookie quarterback Kyler Murray still looking for their first win. One tie and 1 loss on the season. Their loss coming to the Ravens last week in Baltimore. And the Panthers have looked really rough. Quarterback Cam Newton's really struggled this year opening up. And road game against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to see an opportunity there to get a win off the Panthers. And that could be tough for the Panthers. If they take that loss to the Cardinals that are just, with a rookie quarterback like Kyler Murray trying to itch for that first win, well, I'd say that'd be pretty decimating for the Panthers to take another loss. But Cardinals, opportunities there in Phoenix or Glendale come Sunday afternoon. The Giants at the Buccaneers, interesting matchup there. Daniel Jones, rookie quarterback for the New York Giants, making his first start. Longtime starter Eli Manning, benched after 2 weeks. They're going with the 6th overall pick in the draft this past spring, with Daniel Jones. So that'll be an interesting storyline there. See how he does on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Steelers at the 49ers, also big news there. Ben Roethlisberger out with an elbow injury, needing surgery. In last week's game, they took a loss, and Mason Rudolph stepping in at quarterback for Ben Roethlisberger on the road against a very good San Francisco 49ers team. They've looked good early on with 2 victories in the first few weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo really gaining his confidence after that injury from last year. So look out for the 49ers, especially in this one. Could be a big win. Another win for the 49ers at home. The Saints at the Seahawks, and Saints, another team really hurt by injuries. Drew Brees with a thumb injury. I think he tore a ligament in his thumb. Is going to be out for, I think, around 6 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater stepped in last week against the LA Rams, really struggled. So it doesn't really get any easier going on the road against Seattle and the Seahawks up there and that Thunderdome up there. So it's a tough road game for the Saints, but a ripe opportunity for the Seahawks to get another victory against New Orleans on Sunday. Sunday Night Football on NBC's the Rams at the Browns. Interesting matchup there. The Browns with all the hype coming in, trying to get a big Sunday Night Football victory. I don't know when. They say the Browns don't play in prime time unless it's Thursday nights. Now moving up to Sunday Night Football, it's a big opportunity for the Browns to get a big win, upset victory over the Rams. But Rams going to be road favorites in this one, and we'll see what happens. Big opportunity for the Browns, but tell you, we'll see if they can handle the bright lights of Sunday night prime time as the defending NFC champion. The LA Rams come to town. Monday Night Football, the Bears at the Redskins, an NFC matchup there. Not a lot of intrigue there, but nonetheless, NFC matchup there between the Bears and the Redskins on ESPN for Monday Night Football. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us today, and we appreciate you for tuning in as always, as we'll be getting more into our broadcast going forward. Next week we got North County at Kenneth, also Crothersville at Portageville. Friday night, watch those live on YHCTV.com. North County at Kenneth game, live right here on Channel 21 on New Wave. So that's what's on the slate going forward, and we'll be sure to bring more to you right here on the Sports Roundtable each Saturday morning. So be sure to tune in live each week right here on YHC. And that's going to do it for us, and we'll see you next week. And until then, take care, everyone.